Today we have Ashok Balasubramanian, the former chairman of a Maharatna company, the Indian Oil Corporation Limited, and also the former chief of Ratnagiri Refineries and Petroleum Limited. He is a 1979 graduate of mechanical engineering. Thank you for joining us today, sir. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for picking me up in the program. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to, sir. So, firstly, we would like to know how did you transition from being a mechanical engineer into this energy sector domain?
A good story to ask. How did I transition to oil and gas sector? But as a typical mechanical engineer, during the initial days, we were looking forward to either pursuing postgraduate programs or getting into employment. I was fortunate to get a campus placement in a typical engineering company where I was selling machine tools for a couple of years. Of course, I did have a good training input there in the state of Gujarat, a large machine tools company. So I really was able to polish up a lot of my engineering working for that machine tools company. Subsequently, there was an opportunity to get into the oil and gas sector. Indian Oil at that time itself was one of the largest companies in the country. And so I thought, why not give it an attempt and get into the oil and gas sector. Of course, wrote the competitive exam, got into the company as a management trainee or an officer trainee, as we were called at the time. Of course, I would say that probably within the first couple of months of my joining, I somehow felt that that was the place where I belonged to. And essentially, what happened was that I started as a lubrications engineer, which actually was an extension of my machine tools job, which I was handling earlier. My familiarity with machine tools made my job as a lubrication engineer far more interesting. And the bright thing which was happening at that time was, thanks to being an Indian Oil person, I was able to go into a cement factory on one day, a textile unit on the second day, a sugar factory on the third day, or some company like, say, Ashok Leyland on the fourth day. Because everybody used lubricants and everybody had some or other technical requirements regarding the lubricants. So I did enjoy my tenure there. And in the process of going from industry to industry, my learnings about different industries also got, I think I learned a lot about different types of industries, which helped me further in my career. The second thing which happened about with Indian Oil is that being a large pan-country organization, we used to get transferred very frequently. So I have never lived in a place for more than 3 years. Of course, I left Chennai after my first posting in Indian Oil. I left Chennai in 1985, and after that, I never had a posting in Chennai. But having said that, it made me go from place to place. In a lighter vein, I used to say that you can have Bharat Darshan at the company's cost. So I went to different states, learned the local culture, the food habits, languages, etc. Besides getting married and then our children shifting from to school, the tensions related to that and all that. But Indian Oil was such an organization that once you go to any place, the organizational culture and the value systems were almost the same. So it was very easy to settle down in such an organization. And over the course of my transfer, though I started with the lubricants group and all that, first 12 years I was with lubricants, but subsequently I was able to keep shifting disciplines. I worked in HR, I worked in business development, I worked in corporate communications, I worked overseas, and so on. So, in fact, many youngsters like you used to ask me during close to my retirement time, how did you manage to work in one single organization for over 35 years? So I used to tell them that, yes, it's true that I worked in one organization for 35 years, but the fact of the matter is I have probably got 11 or 12 transfers during my period. And more than that, I have worked in 7 or 8 different disciplines, which means, every time I change my seat or I change my discipline, it's like taking up a new job. So the learnings that you could have in such an organization was extremely high. I don't think in any other company you can probably shift from a purely technical job to something like a HR and then work in a corporate communications or go into business development and things like that. That sort of a thing was very unique about Indian Oil. So that's how I enjoyed and ended up climbing the ladder and ultimately got to the topmost position.
Well, looks like you really enjoyed your stint at IOCL, sir. And on a lighter note, have you picked up a lot of languages as you moved around across?
Reasonably well, I would say that. I mean, I had a short posting in Malaysia as well. Of course, I used to reasonably manage the local language, the Malaysian language. Besides that, of course, I didn't know much of Hindi when I was in Chennai for obvious reasons, because I had a second language, Tamil, which I still really worship as a language. But then there was an opportunity for me to work in North India and pick up that language. Besides that, a little bit of other languages, like when I was in Kerala, I picked up Malayalam, a little bit of Kannada when I was in Bangalore, a little of Marathi when I was in Mumbai, and so on and so forth. So now I've come to a state when I can probably understand most of the languages. At least I will know the direction in which the conversation is going.
Okay, well said, sir. So, how does it feel to be the chief of an organization, especially a public sector company?
Well, Indian Oil, as you know, at least during the time, my time, I would say that it was the largest organization in the country. Okay, and we were the topmost ranked Fortune 500 company in the country, on par with many multinational, very large oil and gas companies of the world. So, leading an organization like that with nearly over 34,000 employees is a matter of great pride. Tremendous number of assets, large manufacturing units. I mean, if you see every refinery of ours, it used to be a very, very huge industry. And Indian Oil had 9 refineries of its own, besides two in the as a subsidiary. So we had almost 11 refineries in the country, across the country. And besides that, we had anywhere we could go, we will always find some signs of Indian Oil. So that was the thing. I mean, in other words, the scale and scope of the organization was so large. I used to say that we would never get lost in Indian Oil. Even if you go to Leh, Ladakh, Kargil, during those days, I mean, you could always find some symbol of Indian Oil in those places. So one would never get lost in a company like Indian Oil, because, sorry, our presence was so ubiquitous across the place. Even if you travel by train, you will find some storage terminal somewhere hanging out. If you travel by road, you will find a petrol pump with our symbol. If you go home, you will find a gas cylinder at home, and so on. And I mean, though people recognize Indian Oil by petrol, diesel, and such products, but then product range is so huge that anything and everything that you use today is made out of something which came out of the building blocks of the petroleum industry. For example, if I tell you the cosmetics that you're using today is probably a lot to do from derivatives of the crude and further petroleum products. Many pharmaceutical products, furniture products, glues, gums, paints. You take it, it's all there in every industry. And I was telling you about lubricants and all that, how it is in every manufacturing unit. So the scale and scope, and thereby the impact and influence of the organization across the country was very, very huge. When we were the biggest supplier to the defense sector in the country, the aviation sector, aviation fuels, and so on. So the wheels of the nation generally kept moving thanks to a large entity like Indian Oil. Of course, there are other players as well, but we being the largest of all, we had a lot more responsibilities. Uh, in terms of a private sector versus public sector, if you ask me, I mean, each of it has its own challenges, because I started with the private sector, but then subsequently came into public sector, and then post-retirement, I also went into something which was a joint venture. But there are challenges in either of these industries. But I would say leading a company like Indian Oil has its very unique challenges. One thing is that the responsibility with which a leadership has to perform in a company like Indian Oil is extremely very different compared to a private sector. I mean, while both of us have to be generally responsible towards our stakeholders, I would say the organization like Indian Oil has far greater responsibility. Tomorrow, if there is a crisis which is impending for any reason, I mean, it will be Indian Oil which will be looked upon by even the government of India. to make sure that there is no shortage of energy. So one of the things which used to build pride in us is, I mean, while we have faced several crises from time to time, including several natural disasters, one of the things which gave us a lot of pride was that any natural disaster, you would probably hardly hear anyone saying that there is a shortage of any of the petroleum products. So somehow we will manage to reach products and make sure that things are, running smoothly. Even during the worst of COVID periods, you will recall, while people were all sitting at home during the lockdown, but people still had to cook. So you will recall that in your houses, cylinders were being delivered at that time. And of course, we were also producing oxygen and giving it to the hospitals at that point. So the scale and scope and the nature of responsibilities of leading an organization like Indian Oil is far, far greater compared to many other organizations.
As you said, it's been playing a very important role, and India has been importing more than 80% of its oil, but these refineries play a very major role. How does the organizational culture of IOC help in overcoming these challenges or the obstacles? Yeah.
See, one is that we definitely are a very big crude importer. Unfortunately, India is, as of now, is not blessed with a lot of crude. Okay, so we need to import our crude. But having said that, Indian Oil is a downstream company which starts from the refining and marketing. So we set up refineries in advance, and all the marketing infrastructure we have set up in advance. So if you see that India is, even as of today, we have more refining capacity than the consumption in the country. As an industry, we have. And Indian Oil is a very, very big player in that. So we have much more refining capacity, and in fact, a lot of exports today of petroleum products are happening in India, thanks to India being a refining hub. Even many European countries, and at one point of time, even US used to source a lot of our products which were refined in our country. So we set up refineries on time, and we made sure that the capacities more than adequately addressed the needs of the country. Crude as a market is much more versatile. I would say it's deeper. So you can import crude from several parts, even though Middle East is our biggest supplier, which is because of the proximity. But then crude can be sourced even as far as Mexico or Venezuela or North America. Any of those countries, crude is available. Whereas because of the depth, we could also manage to economically source it and then make sure that the products are refined and we are able to service the country.
I think after telecom and IT, petroleum refinery products are the second largest exports from our nation.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't exactly know what is the data, but I'm sure if you look at that, the exports of petroleum products is one of the biggest revenue earners for the exports in terms of the trade this thing gap in terms of exports of petroleum products is very, very huge. But because the imports of crude is also a very high value item, so the trade gap between only petroleum products in terms of crude and then finished products will be quite high.
Okay. Having said that, this petroleum products they have the highest weightage in the index of the 8 core industries. But our nation is also transitioning to a gas-based economy, hydrogen energy, exploring the renewable energy options. So how do you see this energy transition?
See, energy transition is definitely there. Across the globe, and one of the reasons for it is also climate. We today are also facing many issues. And as we grow up, we are able to literally see for ourselves what changes are happening across in the world. So climate is definitely one of the key reasons why this energy transition is happening. And I would only add that energy transition has to take place globally, not in the same manner. Probably different geographies will have to adapt their own ways of transitioning in terms of going towards a cleaner energy. But having said that, let me also say the problem is not with the fuel. The problem is with the emissions. Okay. So one of the messages which I would like to give is that probably a lot of work needs to be done in terms of how can we ensure control of emissions. You don't have a problem with what is burnt. You only have a problem with what is coming out. Okay. So what is it that can be done with emissions is something which one needs to look at. The second thing is, see, India is still a very fast growing economy. We are the largest growing economy in the world at the moment, amongst the major economies of the world. And we will continue to grow for the next 20 years, if not more. And the aspirations of the youth and the public in general is also very high. And one of the key drivers for any economic growth is energy. And so we have to make sure that energy is available so that that doesn't become a millstone or a block towards the economic growth of the country. So, from an energy transition point of view, what I would say is India probably has to have a basket of many uh, forms of energy. You know, we need to focus on renewable story. We need to focus on hydrogen as energy. We need to focus on gas as a source of energy. We need to focus on fossil fuels also, because one is that India is blessed with a lot of coal deposits. How do you make the coal cleaner? How do you use it? How do you control the emissions by using coal? These are the things that we need to focus on, because ultimately all these will have to service the needs of the growing economy. So there will be transition which will be happening, and definitely it is not that it is one cake and then everybody is trying to pick up a slice of that cake. The point is the cake itself is becoming much bigger. You know, at the rate with our growth is, we are targeting the growth. I mean, growing from something like a 3 trillion economy to a 10 trillion economy to a 40 trillion economy. Even if you say that the energy intensity of the growth story is not going to be the same as it was in the past, still we will need a lot more energy in future. So that is the point. So all forms of energy will have to be finding a place. And the second thing is, we also need to be very cognizant about the holistic life cycle analysis of any energy form. Just because the world is today saying something that, oh, everybody jumps into that, it's not a bandwagon. One need to be very conscious of what steps are we taking, and definitely moving towards that. So in future you will find, I mean, definitely there will be a energy transition. There will be lots of electric vehicles which will be going on the roads. That doesn't mean other vehicles will not be there. Definitely cleaner fuels like gas would have a role to play. But gas is a bridge fuel. You know, it is a bridge fuel between the dirty fuels and the totally clean renewable sources. So gas will have its own play. And, you know, there are multiple other reasons why it's not only for transportation or for power production that these products are required. Today, if you take plastics, for example, all these plastics are produced out of petroleum products. You know, so the refineries are today reinventing themselves by making sure that they convert many of these products which are traditionally fuels into more value added products, like, you know, gasoline, which is petrol, and gas oil, which is diesel. People are trying to see what can we do with petrol and diesel by further transforming them into useful products, which can be in terms of value added products for many other downstream industries, or in terms of plastics, etc. But when you talk of plastics, plastics at one point of time seemed to be a solution. But today, plastics are looked at in from a different angle, you know, plastics, pollution, and then so on. So one need to be very cognizant about very responsible way in which we use most of these products. No doubt, a lot of these products are required, but how do we really use it in a responsible way so that the future of the world is not at stake because of some of our actions of today? So whether you talk of electric, battery, electronics, energy use, anything, even windmills, you know, tomorrow you should not have a problem of where do I put the old blades of the windmills? How do I really dispose them? Do they have some rare metals there? I mean, are they poisonous, or are they going to leach the water surface? People will have to think through all these things before they get on with energy transition. Yes, energy transition will happen. It will happen at different pace with different geographies, but we will need all forms of energy for a growing country like India.
Okay, so those are valuable insights to do a holistic analysis between balancing the development and usage. Okay, well said, sir. And so you've been recognized by the president for your leadership skills, and you've also been awarded the best CEO by Business Today. So can you share some of your unique accomplishments during your stint at IOC?
Well, I would say my entire tenure in IOC was great. But having said that, during my leadership position, yeah, obviously we were able to make a lot of impact in that position. So some of the things which were quite unique, I would say, is the commissioning of Paradeep Refinery during my tenure. So the Honorable Prime Minister had inaugurated that. Today, Paradeep and Orissa as a state has really prospered because of the refinery. Because a refinery of that size and magnitude is actually an anchor for further development around that place. So that is one. What gave me even greater joy was what is called as the Prime Minister's Ujjwala Yojana, which is a social transformation, basically providing LPG to the bottom of the pyramid people. I mean, going to villages, giving them gas connections when they were least expecting it. That was there. But I would say one of the things which actually worked as a catalyst for that was starting this direct benefit transfer of LPG subsidy. Of course, the technology had evolved right from the beginning of 2010 or so. But after 2014, I mean, when I took over, there was a great push towards making this because the I mean, bank accounts were being opened for everybody. And then the mobile connectivity was there. Aadhaar was also implemented in full. So there was a connection between all these things. And the LPG was one of the first products where this experiment of transferring the direct benefit to the beneficiaries. Earlier, whether you want it or not, everybody used to get a subsidized cylinder, right?
Exactly.
So now the targeting of the subsidies was possible because of the technological changes and the way we implemented. In fact, we did that for about 150 million Indian consumers in a matter of 3 months, which means, I mean, we were able to connect their Aadhaar number to their bank account number to their LPG account number in a matter of 3 months. And that brought the industry itself and the country a Guinness World Record. I mean, nowhere in the world has so much of cash transfer happened in such a short time, in such a fluent manner. So that is one great achievement. But following that, we were able to implement this Prime Minister's Ujjwala Yojana, going from village to village and converting people from using traditional fuels, whether it is gobar or whether it is firewood and all that. More importantly, people are, one is they are using the gas, saving the time. But I would say that there are a lot of, I wouldn't say unintended benefits, but there are consequential benefits because of that. Number one, I mean, it has an impact on the village level pollution. If everybody uses gas, the pollution from the villages is far less. So if you look at more than 6 lakh villages across the country, and if you say that all of them will stop polluting, I mean, we are doing a great service to the climate. The second thing is the impact on deforestation. Many of the people, especially in tribal villages, etc., they go to forests only for cutting wood for cooking purposes. So this is something which it has had a tremendous impact. The third is the amount of time and effort that the village, the people in the women in the village, especially used to spend only for cooking purposes. I had personally gone to a village of Meerut in Uttar Pradesh. That girl there, a girl almost similar to you, she was saying that I used to take 4 hours for cooking. So when I asked her how much time does it take now that you have a LPG cylinder, she said I am able to do it in 2 hours for the entire family. So what do you do with the balance time? She said I stitch football because that is a place where they stitch. I mean they make world class sports goods. So footballs are being made in a village there, and she said that every day I used to stitch football. I can get 40 rupees per football. So I said because of this productivity, I mean because you have the extra time, are you able to earn anything more? So she said every day I'm able to do one football more, which gave her a earning of 40 rupees. Even if you assume 10 days in a month she did this, it would have given her 400 rupees extra. So that is a big component. So the economic impact of an initiative like this is huge. So similar to this, there's a lot of things which have gone up. So I would say that these two were definitely very significant. Of course, from a Chennai perspective, I would say that we brought in Ennur LNG terminal, which is a 4,000 plus crore project. It got approved during my time and got commissioned in 2018 in a matter of 3 years. So which has brought natural gas to Chennai and of course Tamil Nadu. There is a huge pipeline connectivity between Chennai and Tuticorin, which is already completed. There's also pipeline connectivity between Chennai and Bangalore. So the entire areas which are having this connectivity, the industries in Chennai, they are all benefited because of the Ennore LNG. So these are some of the significant, of course, much more are there. But pure joy, I would say, is these three.
That's amazing, sir. And to know that you've been the brainchild of TBT or the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana and even this Ennore Energy Terminal gives me goosebumps
No,
actually.
I wouldn't say I'm the brainchild. Of course, see, a lot of brains have gone in, but leading a company like Indian Oil and getting this implemented on the ground was very, very important. So the scale at which we were able to implement and the speed with which we were able to implement, that was the greatest joy that we had.
Okay. So on a lighter note, if I may ask you, do you think the prices of the fuel would reduce anytime sooner, sir? Because it's been spiking, it's only on the increase.
Well, looking at the conditions of the world, I mean, it's very difficult to give an answer because this is highly driven by global geopolitics and the consequent impact on other industries. Like even transportation of products will be going up and so on. But as a common man, I mean, it's always a welcome relief when the price of fuels will go down. So I do hope that good sense will prevail across the world for all of us to live in peace and thereby enjoy the fruits of even lower fuel prices.
Okay, sir. So that is interesting. So we have Seagam 4.0 planned on Jan 3rd and 4th, 2025 next year. So hoping to see you there. Have you met any of your friends recently? Have you been connecting with them?
Well, I would say technology has given a great advantage and boost for all of us. Today, even though I'm a vintage 1979 batch, I think almost 150, 160 people of our batch, we are all connected to one another across the world. And I mean, I'm sure so is the case with most of the batches and recent batches, probably you will be 100% connected as well. So definitely we have been meeting pretty frequently. We had a 25-year reunion, we had a 40-year reunion, 45-year reunion, looking forward to our 50 years of reunion as well. And definitely CGAM is one time when we are looking forward to not only meeting one another of our batch, but also catching up with other people from CEG, both young and old, and of course getting into that fantastic building. I mean, the first time when I fell in love with an educational institution was when I saw the CEG building. I mean, thanks to one of my seniors at that time who took me around for a walk into his college at that time. So I decided then and there that if at all I'm going to study in CEG and in Chennai. Yeah.
Okay. So looking
So
forward.
looking forward to meeting all of you definitely in CEG.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.